copy you down, Eagle.
I have a dream.
We shall never surrender.
Tear down this wall.
This is the top defining moments of the decade by History City.
The previous decade was consumed by war. This one would mark major cultural changes in the West and political revolutions in the East. The decade would see the rise of jazz.
Baby face, you've got the cutest little baby face. There's not another one to take your place. Baby face, my poor heart is jumping. You sure have started something, baby face.
Consumer electronics, and most people in the world would see their first movie in this decade. But just as the world was dancing and trying to enjoy the new modern comforts, the decade would end in a way that left the world in a bad place. What do you think of the top events that define the decade? Comment down below or hit the subscribe button to follow this series. We appreciate the support. While you hit that subscribe button, here's a clip of Babe Ruth hitting a home run.
There's the windup. Here's a pitch. It's a slow curve low, and the Babe swings. It's a long one going out toward right center. Stengler's backing up against the wall. He can't get it. It's in there. Another home run for the Bambino. So the Babe hits his second homer of the day.
Unfortunately, everybody in the stands can't enjoy a beer while they watch the Colossus of Clout.
Number 10.
The discovery of King Tut's tomb. The discovery of the tomb in 1922 by British archaeologist Howard Carter and his financial backer, Lord Carnarvon, yes, that's his real name, we checked, remains one of the most significant archaeological finds of the 20th century. Located in the Valley of the Kings near Luxor, Egypt, the tomb was exceptional because it was largely intact, unlike many other royal tombs that had been looted over the centuries. The tomb's official opening later that month revealed a treasure trove of more than 5,000 artifacts, including the famous golden death mask that has become an iconic symbol of ancient Egypt. The discovery captured the world's imagination, leading to a surge of interest in Egyptology and influencing art, literature, and even fashion through a phenomenon known as Tut mania. While the death of Lord Carnarvon a few months after the tomb's opening sparked rumors of a mummy's curse, these claims have largely been discredited. Nonetheless, the global impact of the discovery has been enormous, with artifacts from the tomb touring the world and drawing crowds to this day. The tomb's discovery also ignited debates about the ethics of archaeological ownership and the reparation of cultural artifacts. Overall, the unearthing of King Tut's tomb dramatically expanded our understanding of ancient Egyptian civilization. Indiana Jones approves of this choice.
10.
Number 9.
BBC Radio broadcast. The British Broadcasting Corporation Radio began its operations November 14, 1922. Just a few weeks before the discovery of King Tut's tomb, they even announced the discovery to the British public. BBC was one of the first public broadcasting services in the world, and certainly among the most influential. The advent of BBC Radio revolutionized the way information and entertainment were disseminated to the public.
Hello, Marconi House, London, calling.
Laying the groundwork for modern mass media. Before television and the internet, radio was the primary means by which people received news, enjoyed music, and listened to various forms of entertainment, like dramas and comedies.
Number 8.
Prohibition, 1920. Enacted to the 18th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution and the Volstead Act in 1920, Prohibition aimed to curb the social ills associated with alcohol consumption. However, its effects were often counterproductive. The ban led to the rise of illegal speakeasies, organized crime, and bootlegging operations, as people still sought ways to consume alcohol. Moreover, Prohibition had a significant impact on American culture, contributing to the rebellious spirit and exuberance opponents of the Roaring Twenties. The government's inability to effectively enforce the ban led many to question its role in regulating personal behavior, and the era ultimately culminated in the repeal of Prohibition through the 21st Amendment in 1933. While the period was marked by significant social and political tensions, it also set the stage for modern debates about individual liberty, the role of government, and the complexities of social reform.
Number 7.
The League of Nations formed, January 1920. The League of Nations, established in January 1920, was one of the most significant international initiatives of the post-World War I era. Conceived largely through the efforts of U.S. President Woodrow Wilson, the League sought to provide a platform for diplomatic discourse with the aim of preventing another global conflict. Its creation marked one of the first attempts at formalized international cooperation for peacekeeping and conflict resolution. However, despite its noble intentions, the League faced inherent weaknesses from its inception, including the absence of the United States, whose Senate rejected membership, thereby undermining the League's effectiveness and credibility. Over the course of the 1920s and 30s, the League struggled with various international crises, such as the invasion of Manchuria by Japan and the Italian invasion of Ethiopia, and proved largely ineffective in preventing aggression and maintaining global peace. However, the League set important precedents for international diplomacy and provided a framework for future international organizations, most notably the United Nations, which would replace it after World War II. The League of Nations was a defining experiment of the 1920s, reflecting the era's complex interplay of optimism and limitations in the quest for global stability and peace.
Number 6.
Charles Lindbergh and the Spirit of St. Louis Across the Atlantic, 1929. Charles Lindbergh's solo nonstop flight across the Atlantic Ocean in 1927 was a watershed moment, not just for aviation, but also for the 20th century as a whole. Piloting the Spirit of St. Louis, a custom-built single-engine monoplane, Lindbergh took off from Roosevelt Field in New York on May 20th, 1927, and landed in Paris on May 21st, completing the journey in 33 and a half hours. The feat captured the imagination of people around the world and turned Lindbergh into an international hero overnight. More than just a remarkable accomplishment of skill and endurance, the flight had profound implications. It demonstrated the potential for commercial aviation, making the world seem smaller and more interconnected than ever before. It also ignited a wave of enthusiasm for technological progress and gave a much-needed boost to a sense of optimism and human capability at a time when the scars of World War I were still fresh. The flight marked a milestone in the golden age of aviation, setting the stage for advancements that would eventually make air travel a routine part of modern life. Lindbergh's transatlantic journey was emblematic of the spirit of innovation and daring that characterized the Roaring Twenties, serving as a testament to human ingenuity and the relentless pursuit of progress.
Number 5.
The Rise of Stalin, 1924. The rise of Joseph Stalin to power in the Soviet Union was a seminal event that had far-reaching implications, both for the USSR and the rest of the world. Following the death of Vladimir Lenin in 1924, a power struggle ensued within the Communist Party, eventually leading to Stalin's ascendancy over rivals like Leon Trotsky. Stalin's consolidation of power heralded a shift in the ideological and administrative fabric of the Soviet Union, culminating in the Great Purge, a campaign of political repression and persecution that solidified his totalitarian rule. The economic transformations he instigated, such as forced collectivization and rapid industrialization, resulted in both significant growth and devastating human costs, including famine and widespread suffering. Stalin's government hardened the ideological divide between the capitalist West and the communist East, setting the stage for the Cold War. His policies also had a profound impact on socialist and communist movements globally. The 1920s marked the beginning of Stalin's rise, and his influence would shape Soviet policies and global politics for decades, solidifying a form of government and ideology that would define the USSR until its dissolution in 1991. Stalin's emergence as a political heavyweight was a defining moment of the 1920s, exemplifying the complexities and contradictions that came with ideological fervor and political realignment during the interwar period.
Number 4.
Woodrow Wilson leaves office, 1921. His presidency is also marred by a number of deeply troubling issues. Most notably, Wilson's record on civil rights was dismal. He oversaw the resegregation of multiple agencies of the federal government and was openly sympathetic to the racial views expressed in the film The Birth of a Nation, which glorified the KKK and demonized African Americans. He took a hardline stance against suffragettes who were protesting for women's right to vote, resulting in their arrest and imprisonment. Internationally, his decision to enter World War I was fraught with controversy and arguably contradicted his earlier stance on maintaining American neutrality. Moreover, despite his advocacy for self-determination and democracy abroad, Wilson approved interventions in Latin America that have been criticized for undermining those very principles. His support for the Sedition Act of 1918 stifled free speech, leading to the arrest and imprisonment of those who opposed the war or criticized the government. Therefore, while Wilson may have had his achievements, they must be weighed against a legacy that includes serious ethical and moral shortcomings. We mark this here because his presidency has had disastrous ramifications to this day. The establishment of the Federal Reserve has had too much control over the economy. The United States ended their period of isolationism. There is a direct link to Wilson's policies and the war in Iraq and Afghanistan. His policies led to the rise of gangsters and bootleggers, an overbearing administrative state, and his ego kept the United States from joining the League of Nations because he was unwilling to compromise. When he left office, the world was not safe for anything.
Wilson!
Number 3.
Adolf Hitler becomes the leader of the Nazi Party, July 1921. Historians have long been fascinated with a man that came to power with no education, no expertise besides his public speaking skills, and hold the world hostage the way he did. Hitler's ascendance to the leadership of the Nazi Party marked a critical moment in history, laying the groundwork for a regime that would later plunge the world into World War II and perpetrate the Holocaust, causing the death and suffering of millions. We promise you, this will not be the last time you hear his name in this series. Stay tuned.
Number 2.
The stock market crash, 1929. A decade-long economic downturn that severely impacted the United States and other parts of the world. On October 29, 1929, known as Black Tuesday, the Dow Jones Industrial Average plummeted, wiping out billions in dollars of value virtually overnight. This catastrophic financial collapse was the culmination of speculative excesses in the stock market, where the optimism had led to inflated stock prices and risky behaviors like buying stocks on margin. The crash led to widespread panic and resulted in a loss of confidence in the financial systems. Banks failed, unemployment soared, and businesses closed, creating a vicious cycle of economic decline and hardship. The repercussions were felt globally, destabilizing economies and leading to various social and political shifts. The aftermath of the crash led to significant regulatory reforms in the United States, such as the Securities Act of 1933 and the Securities Exchange Act of 1934, aimed at providing more oversight and transparency to financial markets.
Number 1.
Alexander Fleming discovers penicillin, 1928. Chances are you're alive today because of antibiotics. In 1928, Alexander Fleming, a Scottish bacteriologist, made a groundbreaking discovery that would revolutionize medicine: the antibiotic substance penicillin. Fleming was conducting research at St. Mary's Hospital in London when he noticed that a mold called Penicillium notatum had contaminated one of his petri dishes containing Staphylococcus bacteria. Remarkably, he observed that the mold had killed the bacteria surrounding it. Intrigued by this, Fleming Fleming isolated the mold and identified the antibacterial substance it produced as penicillin. Penicillin's impact on medicine cannot be overstated. It saved countless lives and continues to be a cornerstone of antimicrobial therapy. However, its widespread use has also led to the growing issue of antibiotic resistance, which remains a significant challenge in modern healthcare. Nonetheless, the discovery of penicillin remains one of the most seminal events in the history of medicine. It's possible in the future these drugs will no longer be useful. The last century in medicine has truly been a miracle.